4 months ago, Austin Shelton, a prominent modder in the Dragon's Dogma community, posted this teaser trailer on his channel, showcasing some of the visual improvements he will include in his remastering project for Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, as well as a multitude of gameplay changes he will include in his other massive project, dubbed Dragonforged. Since then, a lot have happened, and the project have snowballed into something much bigger than initially planned. And some of the things we thought was impossible to implement for the game are now finally possible. One of the major breakthroughs is that we can make custom stages for the game now. For the time being, we are only able to make copies of original stages and change them around, with the exception of the arena stage we'll showcase in this video. This stage was blank, but still had collision, so it was a great canvas for a new stage like this. The tool for adding new collision detection for creating completely new stages is still being worked on, so we could make the stage, but you wouldn't be able to explore it just yet. So currently, custom stages are up and coming, so to speak, but they have already been able to make new ones out of existing assets. And when it comes to the arena we see here, Austin essentially finished up an unused stage he found within the game files. They are also working on creating custom weapons, armor, and items that we can interact with in the world. That could be the possibility to draw a functional sword from a weapon rack like seen here, for improved immersion. And while I can't showcase all of these new ways we are able to modify the game just yet, I have already seen some screenshots and it's looking very promising. And for today's video, Austin have been kind enough to share one of his completely new stages created for the game, where we can fight new custom enemies in an arena-style level, but they're also adding new items to the game like eatable cheese, bread and drinks to add to the overall immersion. These items have new IDs and custom icons created for them, and they have even created completely new drinks with new effects. This one, the King's Folly, gives us a full health restore, but causes torpor, poison and sleep. A very useful item, if you have the right remedy to cure it on hand. Another really cool change is that we have a functioning bed in our house in Khazardis. Sleeping here cures ailments and restores health and stamina. And in the future, this room could maybe be further improved with more items, a chest to store equipment, and even weapon racks to visually display your arsenal. But the main focus of his massive remastering of the game have always been improving visual quality with upscaled textures, both in gameplay and during cutscenes. And lately they have been working on fixing the weird shadow problems the game presents, not only by telling the game to use the highest quality LODs available, but also restoring an accurate shadow regardless of what armor the player have equipped. They have found through trial and error that if we tag something with a value of exactly this number, it tells the game to have that object cast a shadow. This is great, because he can then optimize the game by doing this and deleting the low detail copies of models. Because that's how the game usually does it, most likely to improve performance with older hardware. It has a bad version of every model, and they use it to cast a shadow. Another issue they came across when working on shadows that they are working to fix is that with torches, the light has trouble casting through the metal crucible that holds the fire and firewood, so it casts a large shadow of the crucible and covers some of the light. Another thing that stood out as a major flaw in Dark Arisen was how some NPCs would get stuck with only 1000 HP, as well as major bosses like Balzac, Salamat, and most notably the Seneschal would have extremely low HP levels, to the point where you would one-shot these encounters. What's strange is that these imbalances was introduced first with the Dark Arisen expansion in 2013. The modding community still have no idea what could have caused it and why they didn't pick up on it, but it was something hard-coded in the XE files that they had to overwrite. This is one of the things this remaster aims to restore, but they're also planning on reworking a lot more when it comes to enemy encounters and how these are balanced to provide a tougher challenge. The first available NPC that you can fight that can be modded are the bandit clans, belonging to Mall and Office. These guys are a secret challenge in the remaster, and they have all been made as strong as corrupt BBI pawns in their respective vocations. The next available NPC fight would be Balzac, the leader within the cult Salvation. He now have his 20,000 HP from the original Dragon's Dogma restored. Next up is Salamat. His first encounter has been bumped up to 10,000 HP, and the bandits that accompany him have had their stat blocks swapped from very early game bandits to mid and late game bandit levels. In his second encounter, his vanilla health of 20,000 HP has finally been restored. Another important NPC fight that sadly falls short in the original game was Julian. He has been altered to have 30,000 HP in the remaster. He was a pretty major character in the storyline, and it definitely deserved to last a bit longer. His vanilla stats, on the other hand, are actually quite high, and there's a mechanic where he immediately wins if he staggers you by blocking your attack or if he hits you 3 times. He's a relatively decent challenge now that can tank some hits and give us a proper ending to his questline. Lastly, we have the Seneschal and their main pawn. These guys are actually quite strong, so here the mod doesn't adjust anything but their health. In vanilla, they had 30,000 HP. However, taking Better Black Island equipment into account, and because these two are supposed to be the very last fight, their HP have been increased to 100,000 HP. Now you can actually fight God for more than a minute. Alright, before we showcase this new arena and the encounters in it, I want to remind you guys that what we see here today is just a small part of all that is to come. There is a lot of changes they're still figuring out, and without a proper modding tool for the game, things take time. So every bit of support helps out immensely. And if you want to support Austin and his massive project for Dark Arisen, there's a link in the description towards his Patreon. So I'll explain what's new in this encounter and how it paves way for some really interesting possibilities for the game after all these years. This Chimera have been altered to become 5 times stronger, and it's actually bigger in size as well. The custom Gladiator Bandit is not only made stronger, but also have a custom new skill set it uses in combat. With their current knowledge of how this game works, we can in a very close future create new areas like a snow zone, with stronger reskinned enemies, and maybe even recreate some of the bosses we saw in Dragon's Dogma Online. The possibilities here are endless. And with the 1-year anniversary for Dragon's Dogma 2 around the corner, Dogma fans are eating good in 2025.